Plus meeting, duly organized by CEO Africa Roundtable, which is a vetted network of CEOs not only in Zimbabwe but in Africa. I think you all agree with me, this is a crucial time for the business sector and government to hold frank discussions on the work that we do together towards improving the livelihoods of the citizens of Zimbabwe, but in a profitable fashion. This helps to characterize the environment and also make ways and strategies, even at firm level, to navigate this environment profitably. Let me express my sincere congratulations to the Honorable Minister of Agriculture for the tremendous increase in agricultural output over the last 2 seasons. It is an honor for me and my fellow colleagues from the Roundtable to warmly welcome him to this particular meeting. My dear brother, Honorable Felix Mona, who is the Minister of Transport and Infrastructure Development. Thank you, dear Honorable Minister Mona, for honoring our invitation. Let me say, Honorable Minister, we have a road that we have to travel together to attain world-class infrastructure by 2030 for our beloved country, Zimbabwe. And our dialogue and conversation lines have to remain open for us to achieve and contribute towards this noble vision. Overall, we see remarkable progress in the world economy. Yes, challenges remain, some very dire, but we strongly believe that tomorrow can be better if the right decisions are taken now. As I conclude, I would like to thank the cabinet ministers that are here present. I would also like to welcome you all to a frank and open discussion on how we can move forward the agenda of growing this economy of Zimbabwe. This will allow us to explore the way we can work together, join forces, and also improve or increase our contribution to this economy. Without taking much time, I would like to wish you all a fruitful meeting and welcome to the CEO Africa Roundtable. It is a round table. What it means is it's a round table of equal opportunities. Everyone should have a voice. Everyone should say something. Thank you. Good morning.
Right then, you're of course here at the Executive Breakfast, unpacking the Zimbabwean economic narrative. And again, I'd like to thank the sponsors, Corplay, Liquid Intelligent Technologies, Warson Properties, and last but not least, ZB Financial Holdings. Now then, I'd like to welcome one of my friends. I've known him for, I don't even know, over 30 years, if not more, to give us the opening remarks. That's Oswald Bina. He's the board chair of the CEO Africa Roundtable. Please, Oswald, a round of applause.
Allow me to recognize protocol. Let me start by expressing my sincere thanks that we have colleagues in the House, Honorable Minister of Transport and Infrastructure Development. He's an MP in his own right. By that, I'm trying to say that our engagement is going to be very fluid because he has engaged with stakeholders. He's an MP for a constituency, Chikomba Central. Welcome, Honorable Minister. We're expecting Honorable Enchas Jongwe Masuka, another colleague. He came from us, and I'm hoping that as he comes to join us, our engagements are going to be as fluid as possible. Just to say that Zimbabwe has an opportunity. Zimbabwe has potential. I worry that we talk about opportunities and we talk about potential, but we never get to a stage where we convert the potential to the realities that we seek. The role of the CEO is so central in ensuring that we convert that potential to the reality. Ours is just providing platforms for stakeholders to engage. And I'm happy to say that the 2 key drivers of critical portfolios in the government of Zimbabwe are part of the conversations today. Food security, transport and infrastructure. What other opportunities do you need as CEOs? This country is going into a serious infrastructure boom. We are consuming cement like no other product in this country. Here is the man that has been deployed to deal with issues, infrastructure. And again, we've got so much land, we don't know what to do with it. And the man that is responsible for that is here with us this morning. I am going to challenge and provoke an open conversation. We need to move away from our small little comfort zones, start to play a role as Zimbabweans, because the Minister of Transport and Infrastructure can't do it alone. We need to inform his work plan. We need to play a part. Let's engage. And with those few words, colleagues, I invite you to certainly what I think is going to be an exciting interaction. I see my lecturer is in the house. Dr. Mshineri is welcome. It is important that with academics, Professor Muganu, Dr. Mshineri, and us entrepreneurs, business leaders, you know, CEOs undermine their role. Guys, let me remind you, you are people who are leading families outside their comfort zones at home. And you inform the thinking at household level. And that's important to government. Because once you start making decisions that are not coordinated, this country will take a wrong turn without you knowing. So I know that the banks are here. Emma, let's talk about interest rates. Okay? Let's talk about bank charges. I overheard that conversation. Yeah, let's talk about those things, because when you look at infrastructure participation, we need the long-term money. We need the long-haul money. And do we have that in this country? If we don't, how do we proceed? Thank you, colleagues. Enjoy the morning, and let's have a conversation. Thank you, Director of Ceremonies.
Whether you're a large corporate or a small player, we've got a solution for you. We've got a product which we have named Copay Ignite. This is to encourage the market or companies in Zimbabwe to be compliant and to have a system, a payroll system, so that you do the right thing. You don't want Zimura to come and knock at your door just because you have not deducted the right tax. So most of the CEOs here are receiving housing allowances. Are you guys paying tax? That's my job. To give you a system that will help you to be compliant and make sure you deduct the right tax on those benefits. These days, we have multi-currency. So companies have now started paying salaries in US dollars. We are saying at Copay, we are actually the best in that area. Outsource your payroll or engage us today, and we will help you set up a multi-currency system as far as payroll is concerned. Thank you.
In fact, there's not much that our next speaker doesn't really know about the economy, because both practically and of course theoretically, and as he himself says, he also learns something new every day. So I'd like to welcome with great pleasure our next speaker. He's Mr. Busisa Moyo, PAC Macroeconomic Cluster Chairperson.
Wanani, Salibonani, Mamukachini. That's a language that you don't know. It's spoken in the west of Zimbabwe. It's Kalanga, Mamukachi. We learn something new every day. Thank you, Andy. Colleagues, I'm just going to share a few slides with you. There's so much to be said, so much can be said, and a lot of this is not new to you, but perhaps it will help in setting a context for us to have a meaningful conversation this morning. If it achieves that, at the very least, then I will have done what I was asked to do. First of all, a couple of disclaimers. I am a member of the Advisory Council, but I am not going to share with you the advice that we give the President, because that advice his property. And we don't share, we don't advise the public, we don't advise the CEO roundtable or fellow CEOs. The advice belongs to the state. So I just wanted to disclaim that. Unfortunately, we will not share that with you. But what I will do is perhaps give you some of the flavor of discussions that we have that then go in as inputs into advice that we give to the head of state. So I start off, there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk to this morning, very briefly. First of all, just our reality, and there's many things that can be said. I will just pick 3 things that paint a reality of where we are, because sometimes we have a discussion outside of our reality, then it becomes imaginary. But we need to contextualize and capture our reality. And then I talk a little bit of hardcore sort of economic indicators. Emma was my senior at Deloitte. I thought she was going to speak first, and also being a lady, but I will leave out interest rates, as you can see, because she will tackle that. It's called division of labor. And so I'll just talk on those indicators that I've highlighted. And then point to, again, 3 things that I believe, or that we believe, will be fundamental in terms of stability, which is really the issue, I think, that is a challenge for most businesses. Stability. Okay, next slide, please. So, a couple of realities that I wanted to capture. We are a highly indebted country, and this is very important. We are highly indebted by $19 billion, includes farmer compensation and auction backlogs. So you might have a lower number, but mine includes those. I've put those in. So that's quite a lot of money that we owe to multilateral institutions, to corporates, to corporations. So we're highly indebted as a country. And it's always important, not only highly indebted, but we are in arrears. If you're highly indebted, but you are able to pay your dues as and when they become due and payable, then you are okay. For us, we are in arrears. We are in default, long-standing default. For many years, we did not talk to our creditors. But that process has started. That's some of the changes that have started, to re-engage and to face the music in terms of what we owe. Lots can be said about this debt. Some of this debt was incurred under the Ian Smith government. About 600 million is included there. So there's what is called odious debt that really should be repaid. Inside this debt figure is included penalties for defaulting. So when you whittle it down, you might come to a lower figure. Nevertheless, we are a highly indebted country at the moment, and this affects what we do and what we can do. The second point, sub-point, is that because of our indebtedness and because we are in arrears, we are largely excluded from sovereign capital debt markets. We can't go and raise a bond in Europe to build a dam or to refinance agriculture, to build the roads under Minister Mona. So it's a very important context that we have to capture. Number 2, we're in an election year this year. So there are certain realities that play out in an election year. There are certain priority shifts that can occur in an election year. We hope this year it will be less of an impact to business, but nevertheless, we need to acknowledge that as the backdrop of our context and the environment in which we are trying to do commerce or engage in commercial activity. Number 3, some sectors of the economy are doing very well, and sometimes people, if you're on Twitter or LinkedIn, sometimes a conversation sparks up and says, wow, the economy is improving. And somebody says, where do you get that from? Things are terrible. Things are bad. Then somebody says, no, but we're expanding, we're growing. That's what they call the fallacy of composition. There are some sectors that are doing well, the truth is. Like in life, some people are doing well and some are not. And hopefully what we can achieve in having these conversations, Mr. Chairman, is to achieve a bit more balance. And balanced growth, inclusive growth is always more peaceful. I like to listen to audiobooks, and one of the books I'm listening to is the book called Liberalism by Ludwig von Mises. And he talks about it's necessary for prosperity to occur, you must have peace. And when you have unbalanced growth or inequality, it threatens the peace and threatens the prospects of progress and growth. So that's why we look for balance in economic growth so that it's peaceful. It's not just one sector doing well. And I encourage colleagues and fellow CEOs from other sectors to say, yes, your sector might be doing well, but if we're not all doing well, sooner or later we will affect you, or you will be affected. So it's important to balance your growth, and the Honorable Minister of Finance has the unenviable task of balancing the economy, or balancing the books, as they say. Next slide. So this is our reality. You can extend the list yourself. I just took the top 3, but maybe it goes to number 10, but you can fill in the blanks for yourself. I then talk about, money supply. And this is money supply. My graphs go from 2019, just showing you a graphical representation of money supply in our economy. Having started, I think it's 9.9 billion. And now, this was in August, I asked the analyst who does these for me to remove his projections of December and just work on facts, because I believe in factfulness. He projects that up to December, 2.6 trillion, but I just put that up there. What we have as public statistics is that. So you can see that we have got a challenge in terms of money supply. Our money supply, or the rate at which money is being introduced into the economy, is quite high in that space of 3 odd years. I calculated the factor to 1.6 trillion. It's over 150, a factor of 150. So we've grown money supply 150 times. This is quite serious. And this is why we see some of the manifestations that we see in our economy. Next slide. This is annual inflation. I superimpose in this slide month-on-month inflation and annual inflation. You can see there quite a bit of up and down in terms of inflation. Nevertheless, the key takeaway point is that inflation is high. And inflation is destructive because it is a form of tax. It takes away money from savings, from deposits. Asset values are depleted. So inflation is not a good thing. For those that are non-economists or not really interested in the mathematics side of economics, it's important to know that inflation is bad. And so we have to tackle inflation. If we're going to see growth, it affects growth. It affects disposable incomes, the ability to purchase, the ability to bank. All those things are affected by high inflation. And our inflation rate is still quite high. In accounting, they say 100%, you are in hyperinflation. Well, we are at 200, so that's not good. And it has to be tackled, and we've remained there. In spite of the conversations, Mr. Chairman, in spite of having these breakfast meetings, in spite of symposia, we still have a high inflation rate. We have not tackled. It's still in our in-tray. We have not solved it. And if we don't solve it, the level of social distress is likely to increase. And then disposable incomes, and we are starting to see it, demand levels are starting to fall in certain sectors. Nevertheless, just a second there, thank you, see that we did have a period where, month on month, September, November there, July there, we were starting to get it right, in a way, in terms of that indicator. But it's always important to balance the fundamentals, because sometimes you can arrest inflation. As they say in economics, there's no free lunch. It's what else is happening for you to get that you need to understand. If you don't understand that, you could create a lot of damage. So we'll say inflation is down, and then like a spring, you compress it for a while. When you remove your hand, it will shoot to the roof. So we need to balance the economy. Okay, next slide. So a lot of these, I won't give you any conclusions. Like in the Bible, it will just be a Selah. Selah means pause and think calmly on these things. So this slide shows the auction rate and the parallel rate. You can see again there quite a turbulent or meteoric rise in terms of the official rate itself and the parallel rate. Again, underpinned, colleagues, by money supply. And I will show you in this next slide. Next slide. So then I introduced that graph on money supply and the exchange rate. You can see in statistics, we call this a unitary relationship. It's almost unitary, 1:1. It follows. So money supply follows. Contrary to all the things we say, business is behaving badly, you are sabotaging the economy, you are doing this. The statistics show that it's a money supply phenomenon. And we need to keep the main thing the main thing. And the main challenge we've got is money supply. Now, we understand why money supply is a challenge, because I said in point 1, we are an indebted country, we are excluded from foreign debt markets, but we want to grow. So we have a conundrum. And so money supply, we understand why it's increasing. But we must be consistent all the way through. And when we have these conversations, we must be candid and honest with ourselves. It's important. So you can see that graph, you can see the relationships. I merely just illustrate so that we stick to factfulness as opposed to feeling and emotion, because that's a very low level of problem solving. Thank you. Next slide. I then round up by talking about what we believe are pillars of stability and how we can weed out distortions. So number 1, my conclusion must relate to the body of my presentation. I also have a lecturer. Fortunately, Oswald is not here, but his teachings are still in my head, that my conclusion must relate to the body of my presentation. So we must curtail money supply growth if we're going to see stability. And we need to be convincingly and transparent about the issue. The issue of taxes, for example. If we are going to have taxes in dual currency, what does that mean for being convincing? If taxes are in both currencies, we must ask ourselves these questions. Because if we commit to a local currency that is stable, we are going to see it. We are going to do away with the old notes and maybe introduce notes that say we are here to stay. That's convincing. That's a convincing, cohesive, and coherent policy framework. Number 2, I think in light of the fact that money supply is increasing, we need to allow for a rational market-determined exchange rate. Because money supply is increasing. You cannot increase money supply and hold the rate. In economics, you can't do that. So if you know money supply, then you have to allow. Yes, there is a bit of perception, there is a bit of behavioral economics in there, but by and large, as they say in English, a lot is to do. We saw the relationship. Yes, the behavioral is there a little bit, but by and large, it will track money supply. Okay, so if we know that, let's have that signal or that authenticity that we allow. And I think if we do that, it will encourage exports, which also help to balance the rate itself, and also in particular the rational pricing of commodities. My day job is that I run a cooking oil and a soap factory, and we have these distortions where somebody can buy your product and sell it outside your gate at a 30% discount, right in front of your gate. They'll buy it at $3,000. I'm pricing it official, $800. That gives me a certain price in US dollars, high. He's dividing by 1,000. He can sell it for $3. That's cheaper than what I can do on my official and compliant US dollar price list. This is a dislocation, and it creates a disincentive for businesses to expand and to grow. I wish I could hide it, but I wish I could say something else, but I have to be factful and truthful, diplomatic but factful. Number 3, as I said, again, we are highly indebted. We need to get back to a credible path of arrears clearance. There's no way out. To fund infrastructure, to fund agriculture, we need financing from outside, and we need to be creative. And thanks to the Honorable Minister, we're just having a conversation about how can we creatively finance infrastructure. We don't want to be behind. We won't accept to be behind. So we must be creative and use this thing that we say about ourselves, that we're very educated, we're very intelligent, we have a high EQ and a high AQ. AQ is adversity quotient. We can withstand, we have a stamina for problems. We can go for a long time. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I conclude. I normally pull out, quotations from Rudyard Kipling and Ludwig von Mises, but today I chose to use vernacular. I hope my shoulder is right. I didn't consult anyone. In economics, especially macroeconomics, everything has horns. Thank you.
And some of those biggest contractors are infrastructure. And the argument is that they're getting paid in Zim dollars, the money's being channeled into the parallel market exchange rate. I ask you this, do you know Zimbabwe can get rid of the parallel market exchange rate tonight if we wanted to? We all know this, don't we? Yeah? All you need is to give me the ability to go to a bank and get currency. That's all you need. And think about the numbers, over $2 billion sitting in FCA accounts. 60% of all bank loans are in US dollars or foreign currency. In fact, we lend more money in foreign currency in the market today than we do Zimbabwe dollars. Think about that in perspective. Okay, and why do we do this? Because 76% of all transactions in the market are being carried out in foreign currency or US dollars. 76%. That means that if you're a non-exporting client, non-exporting customer, non-exporting of a bank, you're making most of your money in US dollar receipts, which means you can go and borrow in US dollars, which is tapping into the FCA balances that banks has. I'm sure Emma will speak about this later when we have our panel discussion. So you can see this economy that we have. And I truly believe personally that we can fix it. I think everyone in this room can. However, decisions need to be taken. Some of them hard, some of them I believe quite easy. But I don't need to take away the thunder from some of our panelists. But before I bring them up, I'd just like to thank, of course, the sponsors, Corpay, Payroll and HR Solutions, Liquid Intelligent Technologies, Warson Property Group, and ZB Financial Holding. This, of course, is CEO Africa Roundtable, Executive Breakfast, Unpacking the Zimbabwean